The next item on the agenda is a decision item on the regulatory document REGDOC-1.1.1, site evaluation and site preparation for new reactor facilities. This is outlined in CMD 18M12 and M12.A. I understand, Mr. Robertson, you will make the presentation. The floor is yours.
Bonjour, Monsieur le Président, membres de la Commission. My name is Hugh Robertson, Director General of the Directorate of Regulatory Improvement and Major Project Management. With me today is Ms. Karen Owen-Whitred, Director of the Regulatory Framework Directorate, and Dr. Doug Miller, Lead Technical Advisor for the Directorate of Regulatory Improvement and Major Project Management. As well, we have other CNSC staff available to support and answer any questions you may have. We are here today to request Commission approval of REGDOC-1.1.1, Site Evaluation and Site Preparation for New Reactor Facilities. Regulatory Document 1.1.1 describes the requirements and guidance for site evaluation and site preparation for new reactor facilities. The content also addresses how site evaluation information obtained during site preparation activities is used and revisited in subsequent life cycle phases of construction and operation. If approved by the Commission, this regulatory document will be an important addition to the CNSC's regulatory framework. It will be used by applicants to evaluate all potential sites and select the most appropriate site, and to prepare their application for a license to prepare site. It will also be used by CNSC staff to assess such applications in preparation for providing a recommendation to the Commission or on approving the application. Before discussing the document in detail, I will pass the presentation to Ms. Owen-Whitred so she can briefly review the role of regulatory documents and where this document is situated within the CNSC regulatory document framework.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Karen Owen-Whitred, and I'm the Director of the Regulatory Framework Division. To enhance accessibility of our regulatory expectations, the CNSC structures our regulatory documents according to the framework shown here. This slide shows where REGDOC 1.1.1 fits within the CNSC's broader document framework. It is situated within Section 1.0, Regulated Facilities and Activities, in the subsection for reactor facilities. This section also covers license application guides for reactor facilities for other life cycle stages, such as license to construct a nuclear power plant and license to operate a reactor facility. I will now present the past history and current status of this regulatory document and talk about the new information that has been added. If approved, this document will replace RD 346, Site Evaluation for New Nuclear Power Plants, which was published in 2008. Site approval has always been required for reactor facilities in Canada. All of the current nuclear power plants submitted extensive information for the CNSC's review and approval before those power plants were built. This regulatory document provides applicants with additional information on how to meet the requirements of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act and other relevant federal legislation. REGDOC 1.1.1 refers to both nuclear power plants and small reactors as reactor facilities. All criteria in this document can be applied to small reactor facilities using a risk-informed approach. In addition, the lessons learned from the nuclear event in Fukushima, Japan in 2011 have been taken into account. Applicants are expected to provide site characterization information that includes consideration of multiple and simultaneous severe external events that could exceed the design basis, multiple and simultaneous reactor accidents, and information about emergency planning and preparations for extreme events earlier in a project. Over the next few slides, we will explain the details of the REGDOC that is provided today for Commission approval. Specifically, we will present the objectives, the process and results of public consultation, including the key concerns from the public comments and how CNSC staff have addressed them. We will provide a brief explanation of how this regulatory document, if approved, would be implemented. And finally, we will finish our presentation with CNSC staff's conclusion and recommendation. I will now pass the presentation to Dr. Doug Miller, representing the Directorate of Regulatory Improvement and Major Project Management.
Good morning, members of the Commission. For the record, my name is Doug Miller, and I am the Lead Technical Advisor for the Directorate of Regulatory Improvement and Major Project Management. If approved, this document will become an important element of the CNSC's lifecycle approach to the licensing of reactor facilities. Please note that the animated highlights that will appear soon simply highlight the specific phase that is being discussed. These slides illustrate the CNSC's lifecycle approach to the licensing of nuclear power plants and small reactor facilities, and indicates where this regulatory document fits into the lifecycle and how it can be used by applicants and CNSC staff. The lifecycle approach facilitates the CNSC's review of all safety and control measures and solicits public and Indigenous engagement throughout the lifecycle of a nuclear facility, from site preparation to decommissioning. The lifecycle starts with site evaluation and license to prepare site, which is addressed in this regulatory document 1.1.1, site evaluation and site preparation for new reactor facilities. Next is the construction of the reactor facility. REGD 369, License Application Guide, License to Construct a Nuclear Power Plant, is currently in the process to be republished as REGDOC-1.1.2, Reactor Facilities, License to Construct a Nuclear Power Plant. REGDOC-1.1.1 and REGDOC-1.1.2 are being developed in anticipation of applications to build new reactor facilities. Together, these regulatory documents will introduce regulatory efficiencies and will improve harmonization and coordination efforts. The site characterization information obtained during site evaluation is taken into account in the design of the reactor facility. The design is assessed in the review of an application for a license to construct the reactor facility. For operation of the reactor facility, REGDOC 1.1.3, License Application Guide, License to Operate a Nuclear Power Plant, is used to prepare and evaluate license applications for proposed new facilities, and also for applications for renewal of licenses for existing facilities. The site characterization information obtained during site evaluation is reevaluated over the life cycle of the reactor facility. For license renewal, licensees use REGDOC 1.1.3 in conjunction with REGDOC 2.3.3 periodic safety reviews to prepare an application for renewal of a license to operate a reactor facility. Once again, at this stage in the facility's life cycle, the site characterization information is reevaluated. Although decommissioning occurs at the end of the reactor facility's life cycle, REGDOC 1.1.1 ensures that applicants start thinking about and planning for decommissioning at the beginning of the life cycle. This ensures that appropriate plans and decisions can be made early and then updated over the life of the facility. REGDOC 1.1.1 provides information that allows applicants to make the appropriate decisions early and to update those decisions at appropriate times. As you can see, the information concerning site evaluation and particular site characterization information is considered throughout the entire life cycle of the reactor facility. Okay. I will now present the context for the development of this regulatory document. The document before you today describes the requirements and guidance for evaluating a site as part of the decision process for selecting a site to build a new reactor facility in Canada. It also describes the expected content of an application to obtain a license to prepare that site. This regulatory document codifies the current practice for such applications. The current practice is derived from what was called site approval for the existing nuclear power plants and reflects the requirements of the Nuclear Safety and Control Act. The benefits of this document are to provide clarity of expectations and to ensure consistency in practices. The document points to applicable CNSC regulatory requirements and to specific industry and international standards from organizations such as the International Atomic Energy Agency, or IAEA, the CSA Group, which produces CSA standards, and from other recognized standards such as dam safety guidelines, from the Canadian Dam Association, fire protection standards, from the U.S. National Fire Protection Association, and environmental codes of practice from Environment and Climate Change Canada. As mentioned earlier, this document may be used by applicants to evaluate sites that are under consideration for building a new reactor facility and to select one of those sites for the proposed construction of a new reactor facility. When a site has been selected, the application will use the information in this regulatory document to prepare their application for the license to prepare the site. The main activities are clearing the site and building basic infrastructure. In this document, Appendix A contains a license application guide that describes the safety and control measures that must be addressed for a license to prepare site. CNSC staff will use this regulatory document to assess such applications prior to bringing their recommendation to the Commission for licensing decisions. Here, we're going to look at the site evaluation over the life cycle of the reactor facility from a different perspective. First, there are some key inputs. Based on site characterization, an understanding of the potential external and natural and human-induced events, and the potential facility and site activity impacts is obtained, assuming normal operation and accidents and malfunctions. From this, we can also obtain an understanding of the potential effects on health, safety, and the environment. Throughout the life cycle of the reactor facility, environmental monitoring ensures the licensee is periodically checking to see if the assumptions made at the site evaluation stage remain valid. The licensee also checks to see if there are any changes to the potential consequences. Engagement with Indigenous peoples and consultation with all members of the public occurs throughout the life cycle. At the site preparation stage, the site evaluation supports the application for a license to prepare site, for example, the environmental characterization and external events. At the construction phase, the information is used to confirm assumptions from the application for the license to prepare the site, and the results provide input into the design of structures, systems, and components for the reactor facility. At the operation phase, the information is used to confirm assumptions and to support periodic safety reviews. The site evaluation also provides information for future assessments for the life of the facility. From the start of operation until the reactor facility reaches the end of its life cycle, the information from the initial site evaluation is updated as necessary and used by the licensee to make decisions on any adjustments to the facility design or programs. The site evaluation also provides information that will be taken into account in the eventual decommissioning. Now we turn our attention to public consultation. A 90-day public consultation period was held on the draft document from August 11th to November 14th, 2016. During this consultation period, comments were received from 8 respondents as shown on the slide. Greenpeace and the Canadian Environmental Law Association provided one joint submission. The CNSC received a submission from one company involved with small reactors, that is, Starcore Nuclear. The CNSC received almost 500 individual comments. However, some comments were identical or equivalent comments from different stakeholders. The CNSC grouped these comments into 152 distinct comments. Following the consultation period, submissions from respondents were posted for 2 weeks on the CNSC website for feedback on the comments received. This activity took place from December 7th to 29th, 2016. 17 additional comments were received. All of these additional comments were a joint submission from the Canadian Environmental Law Association and Greenpeace. Through 2017 to the present, stakeholder comments have been addressed and the document has been restructured. CNSC addressed all of the stakeholder comments. Most comments were readily resolved. CNSC staff either revised the document to address the comments or provided an explanation of why they were not accepted. CNSC staff found the comments to be helpful, especially in clarifying the intent or in identifying areas where editorial changes strengthened the text. No single dominant issue was identified through consultation. In view of the large number of comments, CNSC staff grouped them into 6 main concerns. For some concerns, different stakeholders had very different views, as you will see in the next few slides. Industry stakeholders questioned the scope of the document, specifically the structure, clarity, and effectiveness. Specific comments identified redundancy and duplication in the document, that site evaluation is a precondition for site preparation, but the topics appeared in reverse order in the public consultation draft. The scope of the document hinders its clarity and effectiveness. CNSC staff responded to those comments by restructuring the regulatory document to remove redundancies and duplication, changing the order of the information so that site evaluation appears before site preparation, revising the text to use cross-references where possible, especially with regards to REGDOC-1.1.1, environmental protection, environmental principles, assessments, and protection measures. The revised structure of the document was presented in January 2018 to all stakeholders who commented. That is, the new table of contents was set along with the old table of contents and a mapping of the information. No negative feedback was received by the CNSC from the stakeholders who were given the new table of contents. Also, all stakeholders who commented at public consultation were provided with the final draft in preparation for this Commission meeting. CNSC staff would like to confirm that, despite restructuring and reordering of the document, the actual information did not change. Most of the text in the final draft presented to the Commission today is identical to the text in the draft document posted for public consultation, except for changes arising from comments received during public consultation and some additional editorial changes. Industry stakeholders expressed concerns about the scope of information requested for future life cycle phases. Specific comments included REGDOC-1.1.1 asks for too much information on future life cycle phases, and that combining all phases of the licensing process in this document makes a rather lengthy document with considerable redundancy and replication, and blurs the requirements for each stage of licensing. CNSC staff responded to this concern by revising the document for clarity regarding the applicability of REGDOC-1.1.1 to all life cycle phases, and by revising Appendix B for easier reading and reference. Excuse me. Specifically, Appendix B in the public consultation draft has been split into Appendices B through G. These appendices provide additional details on the environmental considerations that are specific to reactor facilities. Also, changes have been made to the document to clarify the use of site evaluation and site characterization information in construction and operation, and more clearly note the sections of the document relevant to construction and operation. This document clarifies that site evaluation information is clarified through to all subsequent facility life cycle phases, including construction and operation. In accordance with CSA standard N288.6, environmental risk assessments of Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium in mines and mills, the site evaluation information is periodically reevaluated. The reevaluation should focus on confirmation of the site characteristics and assessing the effects of the updated information. Design modifications or updates to operations, or both, may be needed. Industry stakeholders expressed concerns about regulatory responsibility, as did Greenpeace and the Canadian Environmental Law Association. Some specific comments were as follows. REGDOC 1.1.1 overlaps responsibilities between the CNSC and other government bodies to regulate safety. And also, the need to meet redundant requirements imposed by the CNSC and other provincial or federal safety agencies will create confusion and force licensees to replicate research and submissions. And finally, the second sentence of Section 9.4 in the public consultation draft lists matters considered by the province in determining off-site protective measures. There are two notable omissions: social expectations for public safety and the consequences of malevolent events. CNSC staff responded to these concerns as follows. There is shared jurisdiction with the province or territory in the areas of conventional health and safety and in environmental protection. The CNSC coordinates their efforts in these areas with the province or territory. Secondly, the off-site emergency preparedness plans are the responsibility of the province or territory. CNSC ensures that arrangements are in place between the applicant and the province or territory as part of a licensing review. The CNSC expects that emergency plans cover the credible worst-case scenario and that these plans are adaptable to respond to any accident. There were no changes to the regulatory document regarding social expectations or consequences of malevolent acts. Social factors are considered by the applicant and the province or territory when setting emergency planning zones. Malevolent acts are not considered for the determination of emergency planning zones or off-site protective actions, but are covered under each applicant's security programs. The CNSC expects that applicants' emergency plans cover the credible worst-case scenario, which may include malevolent acts. Stakeholders also had concerns with the exclusion zone and emergency planning zones. Industry stakeholders submitted comments that are related to dose and other criteria being used in the determination of the exclusion zone. Greenpeace and the Canadian Environmental Law Association commented that the document should be amended to acknowledge the real-world accidents, such as Fukushima, when determining the exclusion zone. CNSC staff responded that the information will remain in this regulatory document because applicants need to consider the exclusion zone and emergency planning zones early in the project. CNSC regulatory documents RD 367, Design of Small Reactor Facilities, and REGDOC 2.5.2, Design of Reactor Facilities, Nuclear Power Plants, are referenced in REGDOC 1.1.1, where appropriate, to support determination of exclusion zones and emergency planning zones. The exclusion zone is based on the design basis accident. More information is available from those other regulatory documents for both design requirements and for consideration of multiple unit events in the design. We would like you to note that the protective zone has been reworded as emergency planning zones. Finally, CSA N1600, General Requirements for Nuclear Emergency Management Programs, has been added to this regulatory document as a reference. Greenpeace and the Canadian Environmental Law Association commented that the draft document ignored lessons from the Fukushima nuclear event of 2011 March. CNSC staff responded that REGDOC 1.1.1 does address lessons learned from Fukushima. Findings from the CNSC Fukushima Task Force report and the subsequently issued action plans. As described earlier in this presentation, applicants are expected to provide site characterization information that includes consideration of multiple and simultaneous external events that could exceed the design basis, multiple and simultaneous reactor accidents, and emergency planning and preparations for extreme events discussed earlier in a project. The objective of the site preparation stage is to assess whether the site is suitable for the construction and operation of a nuclear facility. This includes whether it is feasible to undertake emergency measures given the population density, population distribution, and other characteristics of the region, such as road infrastructure. Information on population and emergency planning can be found in this regulatory document, and additional information is available in REGDOC 3.5.1, licensing process for Class 1 nuclear facilities and uranium mines and mills. There were two opposing views from two groups of stakeholders regarding the topic of selecting a specific reactor technology before submitting an application for a license to prepare the site. Industry stakeholders stated that the document requires assessments and analysis based on detailed reactor design well before an applicant might reasonably be expected to have chosen a design. However, Greenpeace and the Canadian Environmental Law Association hold the opposing viewpoint. They stated that the document states that it does not presuppose or limit an applicant's intention to implement a particular kind of technology in future licensing phases. However, in many situations, the particular technology and its associated hazards have implications for site suitability. Okay, where did I go? Something missing. Okay. Something's wrong here. Okay. So, industry stakeholders question the scope. No, that's not right. Okay. So, with regards to this, the applicant must be able to provide enough information that the nuclear and hazardous substances released will be within the limits claimed in the environmental assessment. It is not dependent on detailed information for a specific reactor facility design. However, the limits established during the EA and licensing will have to be met throughout the life cycle of the project. Don't know what happened. Okay. And now I will turn the presentation back to Karen Owen-Wittred.
Thank you. Karen Owen-Wittred for the record. With regards to implementation, this regulatory document, if approved, is expected to be published on the CNSC's website in the spring of 2018 and made available to applicants, licensees, and other stakeholders. At that point, it would replace RD 346, Site Evaluation for New Nuclear Power Plants. This document formalizes the CNSC's requirements and guidance on site evaluation and site preparation for a new reactor facility in Canada. If approved, CNSC staff would use this document to assess applications for a license to prepare site. The document also provides supporting technical information for future life cycle phases. To conclude, it is CNSC staff's opinion that REGDOC-1.1.1 enhances the regulatory framework by providing clarity to applicants and other stakeholders on evaluating a site for the construction and operation of a new reactor facility, by formalizing and codifying CNSC's expectations related to site preparation, by contributing to greater regulatory certainty for applicants and licensees, and by ensuring transparency for the Canadian public and international community on CNSC's regulatory requirements and guidance in this area. As mentioned, if approved, this regulatory document is expected to be published in the spring of 2018. Based on our conclusions, CNSC staff recommends that the Commission approve this regulatory document. We thank you for your attention and remain available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.